Have you ever had a volunteer simply disappear? No resignation, no complaint, no difficult conversation. They just stopped showing up. If you've led a church, pregnancy center, rescue mission, food pantry, or nonprofit organization, you've probably experienced it. And if you're like most leaders, you may have assumed they were simply too busy. But what if something deeper was happening? What if they weren't leaving because they lacked time? What if they were leaving because they were exhausted? My name is Guy Williams, founder of Community Lifters. And before we get to the subject matter, I humbly ask that you understand, as a solo consultant to nonprofit leaders, every hour I invest in video production takes an hour away from helping those who help hundreds, if not thousands or more. So please forgive my use of a virtual twin to produce this video from an article I recently wrote on the subject. Today, I want to talk about one of the most overlooked threats facing faith-based organizations: volunteer burnout. The reality is that volunteers are the lifeblood of most ministries. Without them, programs stall, services shrink, communities suffer. Yet, many organizations spend more time recruiting volunteers than caring for the volunteers they already have. And that's a costly mistake. Psychologists describe burnout as a combination of emotional exhaustion, disengagement, and a reduced sense of accomplishment. In simple terms, people stop believing their effort is making a difference. What's surprising is that burnout isn't always caused by working too much. Research has shown that volunteers often burn out when they lose connection to the mission, experience unclear expectations, feel unappreciated, or lack meaningful support. Think about that for a moment. Two volunteers can serve the same number of hours. One leaves energized, the other leaves exhausted. The difference is often not workload. The difference is purpose. One of the strongest predictors of volunteer retention is whether volunteers can clearly see how their work contributes to meaningful outcomes. People want to know their service matters. They want to know lives are being changed. They want to know they're making a difference. That's especially true in faith-based organizations. People don't volunteer at a pregnancy center because they need something to do. They volunteer because they want to save lives. People don't serve at a rescue mission because they're bored. They serve because they want to help people rebuild their lives. People don't teach Sunday school because they have extra free time. They teach because they want to see children grow in Christ. When volunteers lose sight of that impact, motivation begins to fade. Another major contributor to burnout is role confusion. Have you ever noticed how frustrating it is when you don't know what's expected of you? The same is true for volunteers. When expectations are unclear, responsibilities change constantly, or communication is inconsistent, stress increases. Clarity creates confidence. Confusion creates fatigue. A third cause of burnout is lack of appreciation. Many volunteers can handle difficult work. What they struggle with is feeling invisible. A simple thank you, a handwritten note, a personal phone call, sharing a story of impact. These small actions communicate something powerful. You matter. And people who feel valued are far more likely to remain engaged. Perhaps the most important lesson for nonprofit leaders is this: volunteers are not a resource to be consumed, they are people to be shepherded. Too often, leaders ask, how can we get more volunteers? A better question might be, how can we better care for the volunteers God has already entrusted to us? Healthy organizations understand this. They regularly check in with volunteers, they celebrate wins, they provide training, they create healthy boundaries, they rotate responsibilities when needed, and most importantly, they continually connect volunteers back to the mission, because people can endure tremendous effort when they know their work matters. Let me leave you with one final question. If I interviewed your volunteers today, would they tell me they feel needed, or would they tell me they feel valued? There is a difference. People who are merely needed eventually burn out. People who feel valued often thrive. Volunteer burnout is not inevitable, but preventing it requires intentional leadership. When leaders care well for their volunteers, retention increases, engagement deepens, and the mission advances. If this video was helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with another nonprofit leader. And if you'd like additional resources on volunteer engagement, donor development, and organizational health, Visit Community Lifters and join our growing community of faith-based leaders. Until next time, stay focused on the mission.